of a sudden. All of a sudden? Since when is sudden a fucking noun? It only seems to be in that one case. In all other instances, sudden is an adverb or an adjective. According to the dictionary, using sudden as a noun is obsolete, except in all of a sudden. But if you think about it, all of a? If a sudden is an unexpected occasion or occurrence, and something which happens unexpectedly happens all of a sudden, that means a partial sudden could happen. What the fuck is a fraction of a surprise? It happened mostly of a sudden, but we kinda saw it coming? Seriously? You ever get the idea that English was designed by committee? It seems to me that the language is kind of fucked up in certain ways. For example, when we describe someone as, say, lucky, we usually mean that they have lots of good luck. Or if they're healthy, we mean that their health can be described as quite good. I see these as value judgments that color the way we view the world. The good things usually have words to describe them, and the bad things have to be described as the opposite of the good. If I were in charge, the language would be set up as there being a thing, and a neutral base word to describe that thing, which would then be modified to be good or bad. For example, in the case of lucky, if someone were described as being lucky, it would mean that the caprices of fate seem to have hit them a lot, making their life anything but boring, but without making a judgment as to whether or not their luck is good or bad. If you wanted to describe the kind of luck they seem to get most often, you'd have to describe them as, say, pro-lucky or con-lucky, or something like that, to indicate good or bad lucky, respectively. Same thing with health. Similarly, I'd make male a neutral term that just means sex, keep female as it is, and describe what we now call males as, say, mass males, so that male gets modified to express masculine or feminine. Someone once told me that this is how it used to be, and male got co-opted to mean men, and now women have to modify male to indicate themselves. Looking it up, this doesn't appear to be the case, but I still think it's a good idea. In fact, man should be made neutral too, and a prefix attached to it to indicate masculine types as well. Woman versus massman, or something, with man simply meaning a person of unspecified gender. Anyway, if I were in charge of the language, everything would be made to conform to this standard. Neutral base word plus modifiers. At some point I've brought up the word scrutinize and flippantly asked how you scrut someone, but that's what got me thinking about this. We have scrutiny and scrutinize, but there doesn't really seem to be an unmodified base word for this verb. I suppose scrutinize counts. If scrut were a word, it'd probably replace scrutinize as a part of speech, and it seems to me that it should. You know what I find very strange? Unless it's something that sticks out, people don't mention sex characteristics when they're being flippant or trying to make sexist or sexual remarks. I'm watching these videos where people are arguing over sexism, and when giving examples of sexist remarks, one of the debaters gives examples of potentially sexist remarks like, "You have a small dick and no brain," versus "You have large tits and no brain." Leaving aside the big versus small issue, you'll notice that the male-centered remark focuses on a primary sex characteristic, while the female remark focuses on a secondary characteristic. He doesn't say "you have a deep pussy and no brain," he says "large tits." The unifying theme? Tits and dicks stick out. They're rather more obvious for that reason. People focus on what is visually prominent rather than what is more defining biologically. While I understand it more or less, I find this very strange regardless. I'm not really sure how to articulate the cognitive dissonance, except to say that it seems to me to speak volumes about what people value in one sex over the other, or where people focus when thinking about one sex or the other. And it seems to me that something is just plain off, if that makes sense. You know what I've always wondered about? You see in movies when the gangsters make payments to each other with these briefcases full of money, the guy getting the payment always just takes the briefcase. Some of these are really nice Samsonite briefcases that have to cost a frickin' fortune, and it's like it's just this extra part of the ransom or whatever. Just once I'd like to see a gangster open up the case, take out a tiny handful of money, look the other gangster in the eye and say, "For the case." Just once. Does anyone else have this problem? I find it difficult to picture a car's gas tank. I can picture a 1-gallon milk jug, and I can sort of picture 10 of those, and so I can sort of picture a gas tank. But it's still hard to conceive of how much fuel you're actually putting into the tank because you never see it going in. You just plug the nozzle into the gas tank and start pumping gas. And then you drive away, only coming back once the tank is empty. At no time do you ever actually see gasoline. For all you know, cars have been running on gasoline-scented water since the 1950s, and the whole thing is just a big sham. And then there's gas mileage. Just try to picture a gallon of gasoline. Realize that represents, maybe 30 miles worth, right? So try to picture how much gas it takes to go the length of a city block. Try to picture how much gas a car is actually using every second, how much gas is going to the engine, how big that hose is, how much it lets through. I wonder how far you'd get on a shot glass worth of gasoline. Unless you've actually researched it, these things are mysteries, which means that to most people, these things are mysteries. We only really know about fuel consumption in the abstract, how much money gas is worth, the readings on gauges. We never see the gasoline. We never watch a tank slowly empty as we travel. That sort of thing really makes me wonder, makes me think. Not so much about me, but about what other people think, whether they take this stuff for granted too. Like I said, there's bound to be people who know how far that shot glass of gas would get you. People who'd seen, even installed gas tanks. But in general, for most people, a gas tank is even more mysterious than their stomach. At least with a stomach, you can see the fuel going in. But do you know how many steps a green bean is worth? Or how many heartbeats are in a broccoli tree? Think about that. Then apply it to your car. I really hate the common use definition of the word person. Most folks take the first two definitions I've found as the ones they mean when using this word. I've definitely got issues with these definitions. First of all, humans are animals, biologically speaking. Second of all, if an intelligent and more advanced non-human culture were ever encountered out in space, under these definitions, they wouldn't be people. I prefer the next two definitions, though I have problems with them as well. Now, again, number 3 has the humanocentric problem. Fuck that shit with a cactus. But otherwise, it's a great definition, and it's pretty much what I mean when I say the word person. The problem I have with number 4 is that goddamn few folks out there are rational. So my definition of person would be something like a self-aware individual being, especially with reference to their social relationships and behavioral patterns. That said, I've known non-human beings, cats usually, who are better people than most humans, which is much of why I really, really deeply and intensely hate the idea that person is a synonym for human. Because as near as I can tell, there is no word in the English language for what I mean when I say person, presumably because there have been no non-humans which the general public would consider worthy of the label, so nobody has had to make a term for it. I suppose sentient, used as a noun instead of an adjective, might do the trick. But even so, the humanocentric use of the term person still bothers me. The word purple has always sounded ever so slightly disgusting to me. Don't get me wrong, I like the color itself, but the name just sounds gross. It sounds like a biological function. Perp rhymes with burp, that much is obvious, but purple sounds even nastier. Frankly, purple sounds like vomit, and it's all the fault of the extra syllables at the end. It sounds like a biological function. Perp sounds like the initial heave, from deep in the gut, while the pull at the end sounds like the glop coming out of your mouth and spilling onto your plate. Pull, blat splash. Purple rhymes with wharf in my dictionary, man. But if it had just been named perp, well, that still sounds slightly rude. Maybe if it had been called purr or pearl, leaving out that extra P, it might be less of a grody-ass word. Granted, purr is already taken, and pearl might as well be pearl, which brings up a whole new host of problems for me to talk about, so thank goodness they didn't call it that. But it's still better than purple. Such an unfortunate name for an otherwise beautiful color. What exactly is meant by second nature? Or rather, why is it called that? Okay, you've gotten used to something new and you no longer consider it remarkable or difficult or unusual in any way. So how is that distinct from what you'd consider first nature, really? Solely because it came afterward? By that standard, everything is second nature. Speech, walking, not shitting yourself, eating with utensils, dressing oneself. Where's the cutoff between second and first nature? In fact, Looking it up, that's exactly right. The dictionary definition is an acquired habit or tendency in one's character that is so deeply ingrained as to appear automatic. Why does no one ever actually refer to first nature? Can something graduate from second to first? And for that matter, what is third nature? Something new that still as yet feels unfamiliar? Surely something which is not yet second nature must be third. And if you can graduate from 3 to 2, why not from 2 to 1? I'm just looking for a little logic and consistency in the language, that's all. How do you spell it when you say that something is souped up? I mean, obviously I spell it as if souped were derived from super. Something that has been souped up has been made super. This just makes perfect sense to me. But I've seen it spelled souped, as if whatever has been made more powerful or better has, had soup added? Somehow chicken noodle brings that car's engine to the next level? Seriously? Yet looking it up, this is the definition that the dictionary has, while souped like super isn't in there. Someone explain that to me. Please. And since the last video about words I think are funny, there have been a few new additions. In no particular order, they are globular, pickle, spelunker, smorgasbord, discombobulate, hornswoggle, mollycoddle, uvula, sprocket, flabbergast, cattywampus, bungalow, bulbous, ointment, marmalade, dumpling,